touches its face and asks the demon to look at her. She calls him and says they can't become monsters just because they hurt him, and then takes the dragon fruit from her pocket and asks the demon to get out together. At the same time, Reinhardt is shocked because his roots are weakening and he starts crying in pain. The demon has wrapped his roots around his body and is dragging him forcefully. Reinhardt cries in pain and tries to stop the demon, but the demon cuts his roots with his teeth. There is destruction there, and after some time, they are just staring at him and watching him weaken. They have found a chimera dragon there, and Gilyong and Yuseong are under his wings. Reinhardt is shocked and tries to attack him, but Younghyuk appears behind and hits him with multiple attacks in just one blow. He has been cut all around from his branches and falls back to the ground. The other demons are scared to see the dragon and start running to save their lives. The dragon is flying in the air while all the demons run to save their lives. Reinhardt is badly injured and is crying in pain when Younghyuk reaches him. He exclaims that everything is just a means for entertaining the greater beings. The people ask Younghyuk to kill him and call him a hypocrite. Reinhardt says although no one would believe him, he just wanted to save the people, and Younghyuk says he knows his intentions. He feels like this man really understands him when he only met him for the first time today. The people are asking him to kill him, and Reinhardt asks if they are planning to go up to the next floor. He replies that they won't find what they want up there, and the castle is just a playground for the constellations, and he wishes them the best of luck. Suddenly, there is an explosion there, and Younghyuk thinks spoilers are forbidden, and they can't ruin somebody else's fun. Dakibus are enjoying the scenario, and he receives many notifications that many constellations are impressed by what incarnation Younghyuk has accomplished. The constellations of the pure good alignment approve of the incarnation of Younghyuk's decision, and he has been gifted 150,000 coins. He has defeated the demon Marquis Reinhardt and obtained the legendary story Paradise of Despair. His rank in Dark Castle has been adjusted, and he has obtained a new main scenario. Main scenario number 10, 73rd Demon King, has been opened temporarily, and Younghyuk thinks it wasn't planned. Still, he increased his rank in Dark Castle, earned coins, and obtained the clue for the next scenario. However, he feels like something is off, and the people call him the savior and thank him for saving them. They say they would have been all dead if he hadn't been there. Dokja says he had no intention of saving these people, and just as Reinhardt considered them sacrificial offerings for paradise, they were just sacrifices he would make to clear this scenario. He has been willingly sacrificing others for the greater good, and he wanted to clear the scenarios and save the world in doing that. However, he suddenly finds it so hard to picture the world after the scenarios have ended. Suddenly, a man comes to him and asks for his name, and he tells him his name is Dokja Kim. Dokja is shocked and happy to hear this and wonders why he took his name. They again ask him if his name is really Dokja Kim, and they all cheer for his name and pray for him. He wonders what he is scheming, or if he is trying to blame everything on him. He is notified that the demonic judge of fire is tearing up at his camaraderie. Dokja thinks there is no way that egotistical jerk would share his achievements with others. Meanwhile, Yuseong and Gilyong come to the ground, and she asks Sangha why she was looking for Dokja earlier, and she tells them the whole story that he is going to be killed by someone he loves. Dokja is surprised that she overheard Mori's prophecy, and Jihai says he always comes back to life. Sangha says they don't know how many times he can do that, and Hyunseong says it's a prophecy from Olympus so that it won't be easily avoided. Huiwen asks who is the person he loves the most, and they need to learn that first. Jihai interrupts and says that person can be her, and Dokja is shocked that she just took her name. Huiwen asks if he told her anything about this, and Jihai says she was just using her common sense. She exclaims that she is young, pretty, cute, good with the blade, and charming to boot, so there is no reason for him not to love her. Huiwen says it could be Sangha that Dokja loves the most, and she is sure that all the men had butterflies in their stomachs when they first saw her, and Dokja is also a man. She noticed that Dokja was a little different when he was with her. Sangha says it is because they used to be colleagues at work, and he also helped her a lot. Sangha says it might be Huiwen, and she noticed that he seemed to be particularly nice to her. He gave her a lot of great equipment in the past, and she seems to smile more when talking to him. Dokja is annoyed by their discussion and says it's like they are playing hot potatoes. Gilyong interrupts them and says he doesn't think that love there necessarily means love between man and woman. Everyone stares at him, and Gilyong says they also love their families, and Huiwen says that could also be it, and he thinks Dokja loves him a lot. Hyunseong interrupts and asks if this can also refer to the camaraderie fellowship between friends, and he remembers the time when they trained with swords before. Suddenly, they start staring at Younghyuk, and he turns toward them and asks what they are looking at. The Constellation, demonic judge of fire, shakes her head violently. Jihai and Huiwen think it can't be Younghyuk Dokja loves the most. Meanwhile, Yuseong interrupts them, and they are now staring at Dokja's incarnation. Gilyong calls her and asks if she knows anything about Dokja, and she says they should just ask him. He tells them that he has been listening to them all this time. They are shocked that he listened to them again, and they are notified that an unnamed constellation says he is sorry. They ask to apologize to them one more time, and they are informed that he is saying sorry to them. They ask him who he loves the most, and Hyunseong says it may not be someone there right now. Huiwen remembers Dokja left alone with a woman named Seong. Songha asks him if he is with her right now, and he replies that he doesn't love anyone in particular. They are surprised, and Huiwen says he is being very vague, and it just means he doesn't love anyone. But if the prophecy is true, he will end up loving someone. They ask him what kind of woman he is into, and if they fit the bill. Dokja thinks why he should tell them something like that. They say he must be wondering why he is asking him this, but this is important, and if he ends up loving one of them, they could stop that prophecy from coming true. Huiwen asks him to tell her that he is about to fall for her, and Dokja thinks fate is very powerful, but it's not entirely inevitable. He replies that he doesn't know anything, and Huiwen says he is making them frustrated, and Jihai asks him to rate them one by one or something. Dokja replies that he doesn't want to do something like that. He thinks he might use all his coins to send them indirect messages, and he tells them he doesn't know how he feels himself. They receive multiple notifications from the constellations and are interested in their story now. Some support Sangha, some Yuseong, and some Hyosneog and Dokja think this all is a mess. Suddenly, the Constellation, demonic judge of fire, comes up with an idea and throws a heart button toward Huiwen. This device, the affection reader, lets someone determine how their target feels about them. Huiwen is happy to get the device, and Dokja thinks this item can only be bought by platinum members of the Dakibai shop, and it costs 100,000 coins. The Constellation, the demonic judge of fire, is hurrying him to use the item, and they wonder whom they should start with. They start with Huiwen, and she is notified that Dokja Kim has 54 points of affection for the incarnation Huiwen Jeong. Jihai wants to try next, and she presses the button to check how Dokja feels about her. She is shocked to see that Dokja has only 6 points of affection for her. Gilyong has 49 points, Gilyong has 50 points, and Yuseong has 56 points. Jihai is furious with Dokja and wants to kill him. Songha grabs the button and asks Younghyuk to try next, but he refuses by saying he has no time for such child's play. Songha is notified that the Queen of the Darkest Spring has given her a special gift, and she has gifted her a beautiful dress. Huiwen says the dress looks expensive and asks if the constellations are having a special event. She asks Sangha to try for now, and is notified that Dokja has 481 points of affection for her. Jihai says she has nailed it, meaning that the person Dokja likes is Sangha. Huiwen asks her to wait and asks Sangha to lend her a dress for a moment. She is about to wear the dress, but before that, she is notified that Dokja has 481 points of affection for her. Jihai asks her to pass the dress to her, and the results are identical. Dokja feels embarrassed and thinks he didn't want them to do this for this reason. Songha says it's not a person he loves, but he loves the dress. Meanwhile, Yuseong calls him and asks what is the matter with him. Suddenly, Dokja feels darkness surrounding him, and he is notified that he is dead. He went back into his memories and thinks the first time he read a book, and he remembered how soft the paper felt on the tip of his finger and how the letters bloomed over the blank pages like flowers. He remembers how it felt as he flipped the pages over. His mother told him that the letters themselves are not essential, and that what's between the letters counts. The letter and the space left between them were necessary, and it felt like a field of snow reserved only for him. Although it was too small for even someone to lie in, it was the perfect place for the young man who loved to hide. In that space, he became a main character, fell in love and dreamed, and after that, on and on, he kept reading. After that, the story that seemed to go on forever ended, and he closed the book for the first time. He remembers feeling as if he was ripped out of his little world, and he asked his mother if it was the end, as if to teach him how cruel life could be. His mother was cold but wise and told him that just because he got to the end, that doesn't mean he has seen everything the book offers. She asked him to reread it, which would be a whole new story the second time. That's how he learned to read again, and he wonders what his life would be like if his mother had told him something else. He may have had more friends if she had told him that the stories were fake and reading was a waste of time. He may have studied harder and stood up against the challenges of life. Meanwhile, King Oedipus appears there and says he seems to have a lot of time on his hands. Dokja thinks a being who can invade other people's dreams easily can be gods and prophets, but it's not Anna Croft. He is a constellation who possesses the prophet of Fix, King Oedipus of Olympus, and he asks him how he is finding their fate. Dokja replies that fate had already come true, and he died just as he planned, and the king says this isn't some fate that he can avoid using trivial stories. He must soon decide whose side he will stand on and be certain that he will make the right decision. Dokja refuses to take anyone's side, and the king says he will end up joining Olympus. None of the incarnations he has seen has a story that suits Olympus as much as he does. Suddenly, he heard his mother's voice again when she asked him to reread everything to make sure not to forget any part. Dokja is shocked and scared, and it seems like a nightmare to him. He hears multiple voices of the incarnation, and one of them asks him to succeed in the lightning carnival, and if he doesn't do that, he will face permanent death in the next scenario. In the meantime, he activates the attribute of 8 lives, and his body has been revived. He is notified that he has become smarter due to the effect of the special ability. He wonders where he is and how he ended up dead, and remembers he left Sayong to protect his body and was using a third-person viewpoint to visit his friends in paradise. Someone must have killed him while he was asleep, and he wonders if she was Sayong who killed him. He is notified that a new achievement has been added to his 5th story, and people will remember him as the Messiah who knows shame. He wonders why he had to die at an awkward moment and earn himself such a weird achievement. Sayong comes to him and sees he is alive again while he asks her what happened back then. She tells him that they were attacked, and they appeared as soon as he fell asleep, and she did her best to stop them, but he ended up being wounded critically. She carried his body and got away as quickly as she could, but then they were transported to this place. He activates his personal skill, lie detection, to check if she is telling the truth, and he confirms the statement to be true. She is surprised that he didn't believe his words, and Dokja asks her if she has any idea who it was that attacked them. She reveals that they were all masked so that she couldn't recognize them. She identified a few of them through attribute detection, but didn't recognize any of them. He thinks Sayong should be ranked 20 in the Dark Castle right now, and whoever attacked them managed to get through her to kill him and trap them in there. Sayong says he should express at least the slightest bit of gratitude before asking all those questions, and she has been struggling for the past 3 days because of him. Dokja is shocked to know that it has been 3 days since he died. He thinks about his friends and hopes that they don't move on to the next scenario, and if they did, then his plan would be ruined. Sayong explored the place before he woke up, but there was nothing but clouds around them, so she had already given up. She is just goofing around with her clones to kill time, and she tells him that it is her training method, and if she fuses them after they do that, her skills level up. Dokja thinks this is how she grows so strong so quickly, and Avatar was a skill that TWSA didn't cover in that much detail. He asks her if there aren't any restrictions in using that skill, and if she can make as many clones as she wants as long as she has the mana for it. It tells him that the skill has restrictions, and she has to give away a part of her memory to every avatar she creates, and if her avatar ends up dying, then she will lose that memory. However, she gives away her useless memories, so she doesn't care if they lose. She reveals that sometimes these clones get out of control. She made a clone when she first used the skill, and she must have given it too much of her memory, and it went out of control, so she couldn't get it to fuse back with her. Dokja asked what happened to the memory she gave that clone, but she didn't know about this and thought it was not important. Suddenly, she tells him that some constellations came to visit him when he was dead, and they were members of some nebulae, and they told her some vague things about how he should make the right choice. She says there was a weird Goryo warrior too, but he didn't say much and left by staring at his corpse. He is surprised that the constellations came there in person instead of sending their incarnations, and Seong says they were in symbolic form. Dokja says even if they are in a symbolic form, there is no way a constellation would appear in a scenario area consuming that much probability cost. He now realizes the place where they are and calls it the cosmic dimension. This skill is used by the constellation, which has mastered the principles of yin and yang and the 5 universal elements. He asks the person to show himself who is watching, and then quietly, a girl appears there, saying he guesses she was reaching too far and trying to trick a constellation. She explains that they have met before, and Dokja says he is unhappy about seeing her again. The constellation, Joseon's top spiritualist, smiles at him, and he tells him that the king is waiting for them. On the other side, Pildo is fighting at a place and thinks others have forgotten about him again, and he is notified that the Constellation Defense Master is excited by the sight of a tower defense game. He has run out of mana and thinks this is his end. Suddenly, a blowfire comes from a side and breaks through his barrier. He is shocked to see Young-hyuk with the dragon there. At the same time, Dokja and Seong are following the girl, and she asks Dokja what he exactly knows about the King of the Wanderers, and he replies that it's as complicated as it can get. Seong asks if she is her ex-girlfriend, and Dokja reveals she is her mother. The girl asks them to follow in her footsteps, and if they step anywhere else, then they will end up lost. Dokja asks her why she is helping his mother, but he doesn't understand why an incarnation of her power would work under a king. Since her supporting constellation is Joseon's top spiritualist, she can be a king if she inherits the right stigma. She asks him how he knows about her supporting constellation, and Dokja says it's obvious since it's a Korean constellation that can wield cosmic dimension. He asks her if his mother has something on him, and says he can help her. She replies that his mother saved her daughter, and Dokja says that is enough to make anyone loyal to her. He believes she only did that deliberately and asks her if she hadn't found her a little suspicious, like how she adapts so well to the world and knows information that no one would at a certain point in the story. Dokja says his mother had known all along who she would get as a supporting constellation, and she probably saved her daughter to use her. He doesn't remember how much he told his mother, but she probably befriended Jianach's incarnation because of the stories he told her. The girl says he is mistaken about his mother, and she is not as bad a person as he thinks. Dokja states no one knows her better than he does, but she refuses his statement and says children know nothing about their parents. Soon, they reach outside a door, and she asks Sooyoung to stay outside, and only Dokja will enter. Seong says his mom doesn't like him having friends over, and she asks Dokja to press the bell there. He presses the bell and thinks it sounds very old-fashioned, but somehow familiar to the bell of his house. He heard his mother's voice, and she asked him to come inside. He enters the room and is shocked to see that she has set up the same room as his home. He thinks his mother is so twisted, and she says it took so long since she has been waiting for him. Dokja asks her how she is alive because she thought Nirvana killed her. He calls her by her real name, Sejong, and she says she only saw children calling their parents by their first names in cartoons. She asks him if he is still going through puberty when he is already 28. Dokja demands his answer, and she replies that it's not difficult to trick someone like them, and she knows more than enough about the future to do that. He asks her why she didn't attend his funeral when she was alive, and she replies that she didn't want to feel heartbroken. He asks her if this is why she sent her men to kill him again, and she changes the question and says he has made a lot of great friends, and they all broke down in tears, not knowing that he would come back to life. He asks her why she killed him and remembers the fate that he would be driven to death by the being he loves the most. She states that Songha told her about her fate and she begged her to save her, and she noticed he came there with some other woman. She likes Saga more than anyone for him, and Dokja says it is none of her business. He asks her why she killed him when she begged her to save him, and she replies that she fulfilled the prophecy that Dokja Kim would be driven to death by the being he loves the most. Dokja smiles and asks if she really thinks she can become the person he loves the most by killing him. She is wrong because he is still getting notifications about his fate, which at least shows that she is not someone he loves. His mother says he is right, and she still wants to see if that would do it and could have ended the fate that was forced on him. Dokja asks her to stop pretending that she did that for his sake, and she expresses his love for him and says she loves him more than anything. Perhaps even more so than she loves herself. He remembers the time when his mother killed his father and says he was so bad that he deserved to die, and this was just self-defense. Dokja clenches his fist in anger and thinks she really believes what she just said right now, and he has struggled in pain for more than 10 years because of her. He wonders if she really thinks saying that will make him forgive her. He thinks about using the lie detection skill, but he stops thinking. What if it says she is telling the truth? He then says it's too late now to say something like that, but she is just saying because she doesn't think she has ever told him this. She exclaims that someone never knows some things unless they are said out loud, and he asks her why she didn't even tell him when he went to visit her so many times. He asks her why she always gave him the silent treatment and why she wrote such a book. He shouts at her and says his life was hell on earth, whether he was at school or on the streets. Whoever he met felt like the entire world was talking about him, and nothing changed, even when he moved or transferred to school. He was always the son of a murderer because she wrote a book named Murderer's Notes from Underground. She never told him to hang in there a little and that he would be able to get through all of it. Even if she sold his story out for money, he would have been okay if she told him she was with him. The fourth wall is shaking violently, and his mother says she always wanted to expose the truth, but he says he knows what she really meant because he read his memories repeatedly after she left. He reread them hundreds and thousands of times and went over them again too many times. Now he can't tell anyone if it was true or not, and he says he was glad that his father died because he was a habitual domestic abuser and a gambling addict. If he had kept going, their family would have been in greater danger, and his mother would have asked him why he was mad at her. He thinks he wanted to ask her numerous times why she didn't run away from home with him and left him alone when he was young. As these questions kept building up inside him, he ended up answering them independently. The fourth wall shaking is beginning to subside, and he erases all the answers in the end. Many constellations have gifted him 5,000 coins after hearing about his upbringing. His mother asks him why he keeps changing the original story and if he has messed with the plot, and he replies that it has to be changed. As she already knows, Young-hyuk can never reach the end of the scenarios in his third round, so he went through all this trouble for him. He exclaims that the ending of the story is important to him, and this world that they are in was the very thing that protected him while she was gone. She tries to tell him that this is no longer a work of fiction, and that everyone lived happily ever after, a kind of ending. She asks him to stop this because this world is out of control, and this isn't a story that he can change just because he knows a little about its future. Dokja changes the topic and asks why she wants to see him. He is shocked when she asks him to stay there. She doesn't want to lose her only son again, and she will do her best to get him through the next scenario. Dokja asks her to admit that he is getting in her way, and he doesn't know what she wants, and she won't probably tell him even if he asks her. Dokja observes she is sad and wonders if she even has the right to be sad. She then gets up and says she didn't want to have to do this, but now she has no choice and asks him why he is so stubborn. Suddenly, Seong hears a noise from inside and opens the door to see Dokja. She is shocked to see that they both have emitted their auras, and Seong goes to his side while the other girl goes to his mother's side. He thinks Jianech's spells are difficult to deal with, but can counter them if he knows how. However, the real problem is his mother. He doesn't know who her supporting constellation is, and he needs to rush her down now before she has the chance to use her abilities. He activates his personal skill, Bookmark, and chooses Bookmark number 4, Lycion Isparang, and with this, he activates the Way of the Wind skill. Everything starts vibrating, the walls also crack down, and soon everything flies away with the pressure of his skill.